Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Java. It's Monday, November 13th, 2023. I want to thank you all for joining me and having a little bit of a celebratory here. I've got a special shout out to Lance. Thank you for being the first person, kind of show a different kind of support for me because I have hit over 3,000 subscribers. And I'd also like to thank folks, Stephanie and Jules. You guys are always here for me, and thank you so much for that. So moving on to our markets, we've got, as we always start with the MMRI, showing that we are still in extreme risk territory. And there's a couple of things going on with the divergence here. So we've got a very interesting market facing us this week, and we'll go over why. So the two main factors, the relative dollar strength and the US 10-year Treasury. So the yields on these both have retraced, and that is positive for the stock market. And so this is causing an interesting dynamic. We did have some bombshell news dropped on Friday, and that was that Moody's is one of the top 3 credit rating agencies. And the last one that has not downgraded the US debt rating. Now, they didn't downgrade the rating, but they did downgrade the outlook on it. It's kind of making us be a little more cautious, and part of that is because of the political turmoil going on with the House and the possible government shutdown if they don't get that stopgap spending approved and get things together in the United States political world. So at any rate, the moment for now showing stocks are in the positive, and that's going to have an effect. Talk a bit more about that in a moment. We've got the future showing mixed to negative. So the sentiment currently is mixed and basically waiting for inflation data. So we're not going to get that today, is Monday. Actually going to get that Tuesday and Wednesday. We're getting the CPI, which is what the Fed is watching, and we'll go over the calendar in a moment. So another headwind we're having is that the treasuries are not selling. So the bond market, which is much larger than the stock market, is beginning to really show the instabilities, and not just for the United States, but also China and Asia as well. So on deck, we have President Xi Jinping is meeting with Joe Biden as well as a few others over in California this week. So we're watching China relations, and we could have a possible short squeeze here that would lead us into a Santa Claus rally. So what am I talking about? For stocks, typically what happens is toward the end of the year, companies are forced to rebalance their portfolios. And when they do some rebuying, and it generally causes a rally towards the year end. However, I want to urge caution on this because we've got a date. December 8th is the window when companies can purchase back their own stocks doing share buybacks. That window ends on that day. So they're expecting that would be positive possible rally until then, and then after that could reverse. But that's looking too far ahead. And this is not financial advice. However, until then, if today goes green enough, what it could do is trigger the larger automatic buys. And basically, what we call the algorithms will kick in. They will start purchasing because most in this market are overweighted to the short side. This could cause what we call a short squeeze because they all need to cover their positions. They've oversold, and then they will have to purchase back in time to cover what they have already sold without having the underlying position. So that could cause a significant short squeeze, making the markets go positive. So looking over the calendar for Monday, we really don't have much. We're looking at the federal budget at 2 p.m. and then Fed President Lisa Cook speaking before the market opens. Tuesday release, but we're starting to look at, we're getting core CPI, but it is prior to market open. So you have to position your portfolios prior to that if you don't do pre-market trading, and also your longer positions. And then Wednesday, we're getting more numbers and our retail sales. So we are watching that in the calendar. So in world news, we've got also It's a war and we're being bombarded with it and also distracted by because we want to keep our focus on what is going on with the financial markets, but this could have a potential effect. So the US has ordered waves of airstrikes. Now, they're saying these are Iranian facilities in Syria. However, these couple of cities, this could cause some issues down the road for obvious reasons. But I just want to make you aware of that. This has changed the position on what's going on. So, with that, we've also got the going on the Dubai Air Show. And Boeing now has had, they're big in the news today. So a lot of volatility expected generally in the opposition. And we'll say why is because they had a data hack. And this was the same group apparently that hacked the Chinese, the problem that happened with the treasuries on Friday. So Boeing didn't pay up, was ransomware, and so they have said that they are going to begin to dump all of their information onto the internet. So we'll see if that has an effect. Otherwise, they have some very positive data out. They've got multiple orders from this Dubai Air Show. They've got large orders coming in from Emirates as well as Turkish Air. On the other side, they've also got China that is talking about ending their suspension of the 737 MAX aircraft. So they will be purchasing as well. And Boeing is large enough to move the actual GDP of the United States. So this could be very positive for actual real orders and real manufacturing. And for those of you that don't know, Boeing is also a large producer for basically the war machines. So all of the aircraft, warcraft, Boeing does a good deal of those as well. For as well as thinking of names, Raytheon or Lockheed Martin. So with all of this stuff going on, and that's why I tied it together. If you're wondering why I went down that path, one of the things that's going on, we also had along with those hacks, Australia was having an incident with took down good deal of their internet communications and it took down their ports. So they were talking about this lasting for weeks. Apparently, it's good news they're getting a hold on this now. But their ports data internet issue, 98% of their product is moved by sea. So this is a huge issue, not just for them, but for everybody they trade with and will really have an effect. So this is what I was speaking of earlier is the economy and how it might be affected because they've got the APEC summit and this is going on in San Francisco this week. So, these two leaders are going to be meeting this week. We also had Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and interestingly enough, also having Chinese bonds selling. So moving on to oil, we've got a couple of stories here. Oil wavering on weak demand outlook in US and China, and the Fed hedging. In the meantime, we've got Iran oil production rising in October. So Iran is doing very well with their oil trades. It's also bolstered Russia and their reserves. So we've got an interesting story that I would like to point out, and this is the U.S. Energy Information Administration saying last week that crude oil production in the United States this year will rise slightly less than previously expected, while demand will fall. Next year, per capita, U.S. gasoline consumption could fall to the lowest level in 2 decades. So, my question and something to think about is this. The last 2 decades encompasses COVID. So, if they're talking about gasoline consumption, falling below even this number, what are they talking about? What have they got planned? I just always wonder that when they bring up these numbers and talk about that, because we're about to hit winter, which is typically an increase. Okay, moving on, we've got Schwab having unrealized bond losses widening to 19.4 billion. But for accounting purposes, they point out that this is one that they plan to hold to maturity. So these are long-term loans they're gathering the interest on, and they don't plan on selling until they're either the 20-year or the 30 years. So they're saying they haven't actually lost money because they haven't sold. So we've also got retail earnings beginning this week, and they're talking about how poor that is. They've got a terrible outlook. We've got someone had asked me about Regions Financial. So they just got downgraded to hold. And I had kind of mentioned you might want to consider getting out as soon as possible and getting into perhaps credit union as an alternative. And that's why. So we're going into China's credit growth weaker than expected for October. And they're talking about a big jump in government bond sales to pay for they're basically doing quantitative easing on their part. But the difference is that they were able to sell their bonds. The US is having trouble selling theirs. And in the meantime, India is planning Taiwan Labor Supply Pact. So India and Taiwan are doing deals, and India and China are still having a rough edge of things. They're not the best of neighbors at times, still have some border disputes. So we're watching this with Taiwan. And I've got a lava update that is actually a true lava update. Uh, Hopefully, you find a little humor in that. I know I'm a little odd. So, Mount Etna wakes up again in Sicily. Footage of giant lava eruption. Now, this is the largest volcano in Europe, and it's active. And I'm bringing this up because there's also a lot of activity in Iceland that's causing them to rethink things and evacuate. So I just find this interesting, and that was a beautiful picture. So I want to thank you all again for helping me hit 3,000 subscribers. I hope there was something in this video you liked. And with that, I wish you all a green trading day, wonderful day in general. And until I see you again, my friends, stay free.